All right, let's jump right in here. Today it is Monday, the 10th. Jump in here and see what's going on in the world.
If ICE did nothing wrong, why are they wearing masks to hide their faces?
Oh, sure. The reason for that is to not be doxxed
Okay.
for doing their jobs and then being harassed.
Okay. I mean, policemen expose their faces all day. Like,
Federal agents are a lot different than local police officers.
shouldn't they have the same level of accountability?
For sure, and that's why you can, report. You can always make a report to the Office of Inspector General with DHS, or ICE
Find
OPR.
out who it was. How do you know who to make a report about?
Well, all you got. Well, here's the thing: you can get their badge number. They'll hide their face, but they'll give you their badge number. They'll show you their credentials.
No, not always.
I mean,
That's
if you
been
ask
a
them,
very serious problem that they haven't done so.
well, I'll tell you, as of someone who used to be a former special agent, if they ask for your credentials, you produce them, and you can absolutely produce them.
Right now.
What's that?
It's not what we're seeing right now.
I mean, if people say, "Hey, I need to see your creds," they'll show them. It's just that a lot of people don't ask because they don't know.
And a lot of times people ask and they do not provide that.
They will provide if you ask. You can't take a picture of them, obviously, but
Why
you can.
not?
You can. It's just not allowed. Like you can, because a lot of these agents work undercover, or they're plainclothes investigators, so it's different. You can't take a picture of the credentials, but you can absolutely, like, what's their name? Okay, what's their credential number? Boom, and then you can make a report to the OIG.
Um,
Or
I
you can
guess
go
I'll
to, or
just
you can
leave
go to the
things
local
with,
field
as
office.
someone who grew up like hearing about the Holocaust, like I have grandparents, like a
whatever.
grandmother and a great grandmother who survived it. This far too parallels what
No,
I
it's
saw
not.
growing up hearing about that. I know in my heart, like when I see that things, I can see what's right and what's wrong.
You see it on television.
I don't necessarily know as much as you do, but I know enough to know that this is wrong.
Yeah, well,
No, it's not.
The problem is that they're here illegally, right? And
Thank you.
this is the problem, is that we've gotten so comfortable with allowing illegal aliens to reside in the United States that when people do their jobs, it's looked at as inhumane or awful. But the reality is they should have never been here in the first place.
Correct.
And they're breaking the law. But we've softened up so much where ICE can't even do their job without being ridiculed. Now, when it comes to whole masking, like I said before, there's many different ways that you can go ahead and figure out who this agent is. You can go down to the field office, call the local field office. Hey, these guys conduct this person was arrested, blah, blah. You can look up the alien that got arrested in the ICE inmate locator. There's many ways to figure out or lodge a complaint against ICE. But the reality is that a lot of these people actually are here illegally. They're not supposed to be here. They're deportable. And ICE is doing their job. It's just that the shock value is because we've completely not been doing what we're supposed to do.
Just doing their jobs too.
What was that?
No, the Nazis wasn't deporting people. They was killing people. And one of the worst things in America is white liberals, white female liberals with, like she even admitted, low information white females commenting on things they have not researched, evaluated, nor understood.
The Nazis were just doing their jobs too.
Well, I mean, that's a subjective perspective depending on where you want to go. But when it comes to what's going on here, we have laws, immigration laws. They break the INA. It is what it is.
Maybe it's legal, but it's not right.
I mean, you can make the argument that them being here illegally isn't right.
Exactly.
That may be true as well, but
Then if you break the law, then there's going to be consequences. I think that we have one of the best, judicial systems from a fairness perspective compared to other countries. Right? We're not the best at all. Well, we're not perfect, but we're better than a lot of other places. We do have due process,
Yeah.
First Amendment, etc.
You can like logic your way through.
Well, that's
this
how things work, is
discussion.
logic. I'm operating on logic. You're operating on feeling, and that's the problem.
Yes.
And this is why women shouldn't be in positions of power. No offense.
This is why
This
women
conversation-
shouldn't be in positions.
Yeah, this conversation right now actually perfectly
Yeah.
demonstrates.
positions of power.
Yeah, yeah, and the reason why.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, this conversation proves that. Like, with all due respect, I'm coming from a logically sound, pragmatic perspective. Yes, it sucks that people are being deported, but they broke the law.
Yes.
You're, tapping into emotion and, empathy, which is fine, and sympathy. But the reality is they broke the law. You got to make tough decisions sometimes and do what's right for the country versus doing what's right.
You cannot make decision based on emotion all the time. You can factor in humanity and how you feel, empathy, sympathy, but where was the empathy and sympathy on the southern border states when her president, Joe Biden, and her vice president, Kamala Harris, let in tens of millions, from possibly 11 million to 21 million? Where was her empathy and sympathy then? Emotions um, do not rule the day if you want to have a legitimate country. Borders do matter.
For that individual.
What about the various ICE officers who themselves have broken the law?
How'd they break the law?
There's been lots of stories of
no facts, hearsay, no evidence. I heard through a friend on TikTok, YouTube, that this sort of kind of maybe happened.
like not showing warrants and things like that when they legally have to do that.
No, they do not.
Well, an immigration warrant is significantly different than a federal arrest warrant. It's a completely different system. The immigration system has its own courts, its own judges, own lawyers.
Okay, that doesn't answer my question.
That does. They don't have the same need to show a warrant to the individual as in a traditional federal criminal investigation. If an immigration judge orders them removed, it's done. The immigration world is completely different than the criminal justice world, even though it's still both criminal.
They have to provide a warrant.
No, they do not.
They have to have a warrant and they have to show that warrant.
Yes, when you're talking,
doing that.
You're talking about when you do a search warrant at a house where a magistrate judge signed the warrant. Yes, you must show the warrant itself, but you don't have to show the probable cause that led to it. You can show the warrant, leave the return after showing what you took, but immigration is completely different. You have less rights because you're not here legally.
Got to head out, but let you know that women shouldn't be in power.
Hey,
yes.
I mean, okay, well, hey, I mean, we got to do what's done.
All right, moving right along. Keep your emotions to yourself. Just get something done here.
SNAP benefits are subject to available appropriations, and it states plainly that SNAP payments shall not exceed the funds appropriated for the program. So why is the judge breaking the law? Maybe he should be impeached too, if Congress got off their butts. That run on the funds prevents the states that have not yet requested their 65% allotment prior to the TRO to receive them. Sick. It's not very equitable at all.
The First Circuit needs to take another good look at this, that this probably is not constitutional. You can't just create money to fund a program that Congress refuses to fund.
At the last minute, the Supreme Court stepped in and stayed the lower level judge who was saying, you know what we're going to do? Ransack the Children's Fund to go give some SNAP benefits to the other adults, which may include some children. We saw that from Judge McConnell out of Rhode Island. And he said, you get that money out there immediately. You fill those bank accounts, and then all the states are coming in, just ransacking it. It's like Black Friday sale, taking the TVs out the store. And Pam Bondi said, whoo, came out about 9:35 Eastern time, which is the deadline, was 9:30. The Supreme Court just granted our administrative stay in the case. Everybody watching X was like, whoo, Supreme Court. And we knew that they were appealing it, but we didn't know how quickly it was going to get there. Our attorneys will not stop fighting day and night to defend and advance President Trump's agenda. And she was responding to the prior order from Rhode Island. Judge McConnell said, this is ridiculous. A single district court in Rhode Island should not be able to seize center stage in the shutdown, seek to upend political negotiations that could produce swift political solutions for SNAP and other programs, and dictate its own preferences for how scarce federal funds should be spent. The decision came down, a lot of people saying, how the Supreme Court, so ridiculous. How can they possibly do this? Look who signed off on it yesterday. Oh yeah, it's Ketanji, ... wait for it. Ketanji Brown Jackson, Supreme Court judge. Yeah. So she wrote that one. We'll come back. We'll see what the Supreme Court said. But here is the application for the stay, and this got submitted late on Friday, and they said, hey, Supreme Court, can you please respond by 9:30 p.m.? And they did. It came out like 9:29. And then Pam Bondi came out like 5 minutes later and was like, at the last post that we just looked at, yeah, this one, 9:35 Eastern time, that would have been immediately after everybody was on pins and needles waiting for this thing to drop. So D. John Sauer squeezed this one in late in the evening. He says, Supreme Court of the United States, we have a maniac judge down here, and we need your help. Given the imminent irreparable harm that was posed by the order from Judge McConnell, who said, you have to disperse all of this money immediately, required the government to transfer transfer $4 billion by tonight. We respectfully request an immediate stay. Okay, he's ordered us to do it. We need an answer by 9:30. Supreme Court, please. All of the judges like, ugh. Ketanji just sat down on her couch, with the whatever she was drinking. She's like, oh, okay. Congress has failed to appropriate funds for SNAP. Not the president, Congress. Go take it up with them. The executive branch has since exhausted the entirety of the SNAP contingency reserve. There is no more money. That was over $5 billion, but that will only be enough to cover partial payments for November. Such a funding lapse is a crisis, but it's a crisis occasioned by congressional failure. Yes. Why don't you order them to go get in there and vote? Order them not to leave the building until they come out with a vote. Yes. And one that can only be solved through congressional action. Why wouldn't he do that? Because he can't do it. Instead, a single district judge has imposed a different solution. After 5 p.m. last night, he ordered Brooke Rollins to cover the SNAP shortfall by transferring billions of dollars that were appropriated for different critical food programs like the National School Lunch Program within a single business day by tonight. That unprecedented injunction makes a mockery of the separation of powers. The core power of Congress is that of the purse, while the executive is tasked with allocating limited resources across competing priorities. But here, Judge McConnell, he took the current shutdown as effective license to declare a federal bankruptcy and appoint itself the trustee, charged with now picking winners and losers among those seeking the limited pool of remaining federal funds. He's the president now. The district court's ruling is untenable at every turn. The court demanded that the USDA find some anyway to fund SNAP, treating the program like a mandatory entitlement out of his butt. But the SNAP statute is explicit. SNAP benefits are subject to available appropriations, and it states plainly that SNAP payments shall not exceed the funds appropriated for the program. So why is the judge breaking the law? Maybe he should be impeached too if Congress got off their butts. Indeed, the statute and governing regulations specifically contemplate that in the event of a shortfall in funding, USDA will direct the states to reduce their benefits, which is exactly what we did. We followed the law. Instead, Judge McConnell focused on the fact that Congress gave the USDA certain power to reallocate some of its money. But from that premise, the court held it was arbitrary and capricious. And we read through his decision yesterday. Under the Administrative Procedure Act, and we said arbitrary and capricious, the government is shut down. What more legitimate basis do you have to say, I don't have any money? Congress is shut down. So what are we supposed to do? But from that premise, he said, no, it's arbitrary. You can't do that. And instead, he used the APA, which is a scam provision that they always use when they have no good arguments and the judges just want to have a hissy fit and say, it's arbitrary. They're going to use that to then force us to drain $4 billion from the children nutrition programs to fully, rather than partially, fund the SNAP. He says, this is as wrong as it sounds, okay? As we've explained the USDA, pulling billions of dollars from the children program would jeopardize those programs' ability to fully operate this year, putting at risk critical food assistance initiatives relied upon by millions of children every day, and raiding a program that Congress did fund to instead extend one that Congress has not funded. The district court discounted this concern. Judge said, well, Congress would be able to later appropriate money to pay back the money that I'm stealing from you. But it's obvious it's not unlawful for the agency to see things differently. Okay, we're allowed to say, no, that's not what the law says, and refuse to starve Peter to feed Paul by gambling school lunches tomorrow in exchange.
Yes, they want to control what Trump does, and these illegitimate judging courts. These courts using illegitimate reasons to overturn what Trump is doing. It's only trying to slow him, but they don't understand. He's still got a year and a month and a half 3 years and a year and a half, 3 years and 2 months to go, roughly. So keep going, Mr. President.
For more SNAP money today. He's like, well, feed the kids later. We need that now for these other people in America who definitely need it. And refuse to starve Peter to feed Paul. Instead, that sort of hard trade-off is precisely the sort of decision that Congress committed to us and placed beyond the reach of the judges. Now, if allowed to stand, this decision will metastasize and so further shut down chaos. Every beneficiary of a federal program could run into court, point to an agency's general discretion to move money around, and claim that failing to prioritize this was arbitrary and capricious. Courts would then issue unworkable and potentially conflicting injunctions as different judges order different allocations and different limited pools of money. All the people are running in to the Walmart and fighting over that big pallet of garbage, which is our money. District court seizure of power to allocate federal agency funds as they would see fit would invite a run on the bank, just like in Walmart. And by way of judicial fiat during the shutdown, as litigants race to the courthouse to get their guarantee of federal federal funds and convince hack partisan judges it's my money, we need it, I'm gonna starve to death. Lady, you're 350 pounds overweight. Indeed, that is already happening in this very case, which explains why at a minimum, an immediate administrative stay is urgently needed. Just hours after the decision below and its new TRO, before the government could even seek an appeal, some states preemptively already coming in. They're like, there's gonna be money there. They're pounding the door down. 100% of SNAP benefits, they're already there, trying to seize what they could of our limited funds before any appeal could even be filed, to the detriment of other states' allotment, all racing in to just suck down those federal funds. Judge McConnell, just to be clear, said after 5 p.m., make the money available. Boom, states are lining up. Perfect. Where's mine? Mine. And there's not even time to appeal. All of this, and of course they've appealed it and the stay has now happened, but this was happening within a matter of 4.5 hours. All of this also usurps Congress's role in bringing about an end to the shutdown and risks upending the political branches altogether. Maybe we want to have some leverage, the executive branch, to force Congress to do their job to reopen the government. So they're knocking on the door of the Supreme Court. They said, hey, you guys got to do something about this. This is urgently needed to comply with yesterday's abrupt TRO that then led the states to come crashing into the bank. The government must transfer billions of dollars. And if we throw around the B like it ain't nothing because we're talking about the federal government, just think about how much money that is. Think about whatever business you've been a part of and what your annual revenues are. Whatever they are, I'm sure it's not 5 billion. Maybe it is if you're, with a huge company. But I mean, it's like so much money. And send that money to the states by tonight. Once those billions are out the door, we can't get it back. Yeah, exactly. That's why McConnell did it this way. To the significant detriment of other critical social programs, in this case, the kids, whose budgets the district court ordered.
The courts are off the rail. The Supreme Court, I'm glad they acted to forestall this illegitimate action by the courts. They have to be put in check. Something has to be done, and something has to be done now within the system to beat them back. And we got to put into play through Congress, through the Supreme Court, some guardrails to hold these judges back from trying to usurp the power of the president of the United States.
The government to raid. In the immediate term, a stay is warranted so this court can review the application. Supreme Court, you have to help. Little background. SNAP is a program administered by the USDA. All the rules explain how this is supposed to work. The statutes govern this, and there's rules and regulations, and we're following those. Now, at the end of September, this year, appropriation for SNAP lapsed. The government shutdown continued, and we explained, if we don't have money, then we can't pay you money. So what happened is a coalition of states and nonprofits, they all filed suit. They said, this is arbitrary and capricious. You can't take away our food. The district court came back down, issued some oral orders, and we covered the final decision from the judge. He said, after 5 p.m. on November 6th, yesterday, from the date they're knocking on the Supreme Court, McConnell, he directed us to pay everything. The court declared the delays inherent. Remember, Trump was saying, okay, we're moving the money around. He said, not fast enough. Get it out right now. He said, that's intolerable. And so you have to pay everything. And you have to go take it from Section 32 to steal from the kids. Now, we have discretionary authority to do a bunch of things, and he's using that. The court ordered full payment of the funds by today, on Friday, hours after the government got this order. Wisconsin, one of the plaintiff states, so they're suing, Wisconsin, immediately updated their file, and they demanded 100%. They sued. McConnell says, give them the money. Wisconsin's knocking on the door like, oh, we're here. The USDA system rejected the file because the government hadn't even had an opportunity to comply with the just issued TRO. But the processor moved forward, resulting in Wisconsin, they overdrew its letter of credit by $20 million. They came in, they got one of the TVs and raced out the door before security could stop them. Wisconsin. And at least some California recipients have also gotten full November benefits. California, you'd expect, but I'm disappointed in Wisconsin. That run on the funds prevents the states that have not yet requested their 65% allotment prior to the TRO to receive them. Sick. It's not very equitable at all. So they're going to take 100% rather than everybody taking 65%. And by them taking 100%, other people get less. It's like when everybody's lost at sea and you have to ration your water. If everybody follows the ration, we'll all live. But California and Wisconsin came in and drank the whole barrels. Jerks. Now, the government filed an emergency stay as soon as it was possible with the First Circuit, which was this morning, and requested a ruling by 4 p.m. The First Circuit requested a response by noon. soon. In light of all of this, we're out of time. Okay, so we got this new order. We're coming to you to the Supreme Court, and we need you to rule on this. We're going to win. We know the order or how injunctions work and stays work. They say, but these orders from this judge are not short-term emergency measures. So this judge is using power he doesn't have. They are a single judge's attempt, McConnell, and we saw his photo yesterday, to commandeer billions of dollars in federal funds to address the consequences of the government shutdown as he sees fit, and to do so in a way that would force the transfer and expenditure of billions of dollars that would otherwise go to the children. These are judicial edicts, and these are appealable. Now, they said, we can't challenge this because we're operating in bad faith, but we're appealing it, and we're trying to comply. We've already depleted the SNAP funds, and the government declined to transfer billions of other dollars from the kids. We say, in the executive branch, that would create an unacceptable risk to the children. We can see all the factors and variables, and so we're not going to do it. Now, the government's decision here is a classic example of agency action. Federal law delegates that to, the agency who can make these decisions. And the SNAP statute expressly explains what should happen if there isn't any money. In that event, the statute doesn't say, because Congress said so, to instruct the USDA to pull from other conceivable forces and sources of money. Accordingly, the default rule is a reduction in benefits, okay? You don't raid the children's funds. The law says cut the benefits until the money comes back, but they didn't want to do that. Now, that said, as noted above, Congress has also provided for a multi-year emergency reserve, and we may use that, but shutdowns are far from the only emergencies that have access to the contingency funds. We need to respond to disasters as well with programs like DSNAP. And there are uncertain exigencies that can come up all the time. So we have to think about those things. Nothing about this careful scheme that was actually in the law creates what this judge allowed to happen. Even if the USDA has the power to pull funds, that is a thoroughly discretionary authority. So we can decide whether to do it or not. There's nothing that requires us to do it. We're not in violation of any rules, and the judge doesn't have the power to call it arbitrary and capricious if the law says we can do it. Under this precedent, this is unreviewable by way of the APA. So they came in, they pulled that one out, as they always do. They shove that in basically every case because it's like a big hole that the judges can fill with their partisanship. The agency decision here, whether to deplete one program for another one, follows all of the precedent. The district court's contrary drive-by analysis is untenable. The court, the lower judge, first observed, well, we disputed how this works, and it's a question of law. But he says that's a non sequitur. Whether the USDA has the authority to move funds is fundamentally distinct from our requirement to do so. We might be able to do it, but it's not forcing us to do it. And so long as that authority is discretionary, you can't substitute your judgment for that, judge. Now, they try to sweep aside these bad case precedent that doesn't serve their case, but this transfer, if we do it, it's going to be a permanent loss for the kids. That is a sizable sum of money, it's $4 billion, that would create an unprecedented and significant threat to the entire program, throwing into doubt whether we can feed the kids. Foregoing immediate funds for SNAP so that November recipients could get a full payment is a serious risk, and we're not going to do it. The agency also explained that transferring funds would undermine any of our priorities and congressional mandates, and you said it was arbitrary and capricious, but that was egregious error at every turn. Grievous. Foremost, the court maintained that there was no clear indication that Congress would not later, Congress, once they reopen, then they can send more money back into the money that we're raiding. They also faulted us for deciding to go and use partial payments, and they also tarred our decision. They said, this is pretextual. You're just trying to starve people so that the Democrats will open up the government. They say, no, we're not. We have no money. And so we should win this. There will be irreparable harm to the government. This is an unacceptable risk to the children's program. And if we're forced to do this, we will never be able to recoup those expenditures. Wisconsin and all the Californians are already crashing in here, raiding the funds before we even have an opportunity. And these harms are only going to compound if the lower level decision is allowed to stand. Everybody will then be coming in here and demanding that we get paid by some judge who orders us to pay off their judicially mandated tab. Now here, they don't get to say that they've experienced harm that requires them to be made whole with this stolen money. The law already explains that we should reduce benefits. And so, Supreme Court, a stay is absolutely warranted, badly needed, and you should stop McConnell, the maniac from Rhode Island. Signed by D. John Sauer. He didn't say that, I said that, but it's basically what we're saying. In conclusion, signed, respectfully submitted by D. John Sauer. So it went over to Ketanji, wait for it. She posted this one in response. She said, okay, here's the order from the court. All right, now Trump is seeking a stay from Judge McConnell. His order from the judge requires the SNAP benefits to be paid, and he wants the funding sent in by the end of November 7th today, which was yesterday from the recording. This came out about 9:29 at night. Earlier today, the applicants asked the United States Court of Appeals for the First Circuit to issue a stay. At 6:08 p.m., they denied the request for a stay, but they said, well, we intend to issue a decision as quickly as possible. Okay, well, he's got to send the money out in an hour. The applicants then went up to the Supreme Court and they said, hey, Supreme Court, we need your help. We're not getting a decision from the First Circuit. They're too slow. They want the money to go out. They want more states to come crashing in here to raid the funds from the kids. They say without intervention, we have to transfer $4 billion, like by the stroke of midnight, to fund SNAP benefits. And so they say, well, given the First Circuit's representations, they say, even Supreme Court says, all right, First Circuit is also saying that we're going to also continue to consider this, but we're not going to issue a stay right now, but we're going to think about it, and then maybe we'll issue a stay later. They say, okay, well, if they're thinking about it, then we have to issue a stay. So it is hereby ordered that the case and the mandate to transfer $4 billion, steal it from the kids and give it to the snaps is...
First Circuit refused to do their job and give the government time to make their case.
Hereby administratively stayed. McConnell blown out. This administrative stay will terminate 48 hours, so it's temporary, after the First Circuit's resolution of the motion, which the First Circuit is expected to issue with dispatch. So stop delaying. So $4 billion doesn't have to get transferred, and Pam Bondi was celebrating it, but she was not alone. We also saw Brooke Rollins was happy about this, and she came out and explained the following. Snap update. The Supreme Court has issued a temporary stay. The federal government can't just create money for food stamps when Democrats choose not to fund the government 14 times and counting. Activist judges like McConnell have ordered reckless and unconstitutional legal maneuvers because Senate Democrats refuse to uphold their duties. This would be solved if the Democrats would do the right thing and vote to reopen the government. Millions of the most vulnerable among us would have their full SNAP benefits, and very quickly too. Here is Brooke Rollins explaining.
Well, so last night, just to very quickly summarize for everyone, the Constitution, basically the executive branch takes the money from Congress, from the legislative branch. This goes back to the very beginning. We just can't create money out of the sky. That's not how the United States work. It's interesting, the No Kings rally, right? Where they said, we don't want a king in America, except now they want a king that can create money out of the sky, the clear blue sky. And so a very leftist judge in Rhode Island said, oh, go create the money, everybody, go find it. And then the First Circuit basically agreed with that. But last night, y'all, Judge Ketanji Brown, no great friend of, free market and constitutional government, said, no, we need to stay this for 48 hours. The First Circuit needs to take another good look at this, that this probably is not constitutional. You can't just create money to fund a program that Congress refuses to fund.
Yeah, and big victory from the DOJ, and they moved quickly on that. So we're happy to see that there was even some sanity from ... wait for it, Ketanji. So SNAP benefits and that issue is not going to go away, of course. We'll keep our eye on that one.
All right, thanks for watching. Tune back in. Please like, subscribe, and make a comment.